Will the February 20th, 2013 meeting of the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission please come to order? Thank you all for your attendance this evening. For the benefit of those present who may not have participated in the P&Z meeting, I will review our public hearing procedure, which is as follows. We will read the legal notice for the public hearing portion of the meeting as published in the local newspaper. The applicants will then be invited to come forward and present their case, explaining to the Commission and the public what is specifically being requested of the subject property. Written comments from town agencies pertaining to the application will then be read into the record if the Commission has received any. The Commissioners will then ask their clarifying questions, and the public will then be invited to ask any questions they have about the application. I'll then ask those in attendance who support the application to please come forward and make their statement, and then I will ask those in the audience who oppose the application to please come forward and make their statement. As this is a public hearing, it will be necessary for those coming forward to ask questions or to speak for or against any application to please identify themselves and state their name and address for the record prior to proceeding. At the conclusion of all statements from the public and the applicant, I will close the public hearing. The applicant and the public are then free to leave or remain for the balance of the public hearings and the regular meeting, at which time the Commission will discuss each application under consideration and try to reach a decision. Each applicant will be notified in writing as to the decisions of this Commission. The applicant and/or any aggrieved party with legal standing will have the right to appeal this decision to Superior Court within the statutory time frame if they so desire. All decisions reached at this meeting will be available to the public the next day by either visiting or calling the Planning and Zoning Office after 9:30 a.m. Seated this evening are the following Guilford Planning and Zoning Commissioners: David Grigsby, Frank DeAndrea, Ray Bauer, Peter Golitz, Greg Musilli. Town staff present this evening, we have George Crowell, the town planner, Donette, our recording secretary, and the videographer is Shannon Gale. Will the secretary please read the notice, legal notice for this meeting?
You got it.
You got it. For me? I think I'm the secretary.
De facto.
Sorry. Notice is hereby given that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on February 20th, 2013 at 7:30 p.m. at the Nathaniel B. Green Community Center, Mononkatuk Room, 2nd floor, 32 Church Street, Guilford, Connecticut, for the following purposes. Number 1, Thomas Galoran, property located at 373 Whitfield Street, map 28, lot 20 and 23, zone R3. Revision to an existing special permit which will allow an 8-foot extension to the building, a front porch, and a freestanding storage building, section 27313D. Copies of these applications are available for inspection in the office of the Planning and Zoning Commission, Town Hall South, 50 Boston Street, Guilford, Connecticut. At this hearing, persons may attend and be heard, and written communications will be received. Dated at Guilford, Connecticut, 31st day of January 2013. Ray Bauer, Chairman.
Thank you very much, David. First item on the public hearing agenda, and the only item, is the Thomas Galoran application, 373 Whitfield Street. This is a revision to an existing special permit, which will allow an 8-foot extension to the building, a front porch, and a freestanding storage building. In addition, we do have a request to waive a professionally prepared site plan before us. We'll take that up prior to deciding on this application. George, maybe can you just give us a history sort of the variances and where we are as of today, just so we're all at the same page prior to going into the presentation?
This is an existing three-family dwelling on Whitfield Street, right across the street from Arrow Paving Site. You've probably seen it if you've been down that way. A variance was granted in 1988 to allow the creation of this new three-family building. There were multiple residences on the lot at the time, and they were all somewhat deteriorated, I guess, and the variance was granted to change the non-conforming use at the time, the three or four, perhaps it was, cottages, and to allow a single three-family building, which was constructed pursuant to a site plan approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission sometime after 1988, probably in 1988. And the owner of the property, Mr. Galoran, is proposing to modify the non-conforming use by adding on to the existing building small living area addition plus a front porch, and also to construct a detached shed on the property.
Okay. Good. So then the variances we see, we have a copy before us. This is a use variance to permit 3 existing structures to be replaced by 1 4-family structure, and we're not going beyond 4 families with this application.
We're not going beyond.
4, actually.
Oh, it's 4 family?
Yeah, it was only
Okay,
4.
Okay.
sorry.
Sir, why don't you
Oh.
present the application then?
My name is Tom Delore, I reside at 220 Chestnut Grove here in Guilford, and I own the property at 373 Whitfield Street since 1985. And George's synopsis is correct, there was, I believe, 4 separate buildings, and Eric did the site plan for us, which is a copy of the A2 survey that we conducted after the foundation was poured into the structure, showing all the setbacks. It's currently a 4-family building, 4 2-bedroom townhouse style units. What we would like to do, we're asking for a revision of the special permit. So on the southerly side of the building, which is the gable, as you stand and face the building from Whitfield Street, it's the right-hand side of the building.
And that's outlined in yellow here?
Yes, it's
Okay.
outlined in the yellow on the site plan. And we're proposing to add 8 feet to the structure on that end of the building. There won't be any additional rooms to the space. On the first floor, there's a kitchen and a living room that'll be expanded. On the second floor, there's 2 bedrooms, which will also be expanded, but there won't be any additional rooms added to that.
So you're not going to go beyond the 4-family structure?
Not going to be any change in use, just Unit D, which is the farthest on the right, will have some more square footage. And my intention is that if I ever have to build it to sell my house over on Chestnut Grove, I'm going to move down to the property here on Whitfield Street and do that as my residence. So if you look at the site plan, I discussed it with Rich Reed. It looks like that we still meet the setback requirement, which is 12-foot minimum on one side, 30-foot total up at the 2 sides. And so you have a copy of the site plan that Eric had done for us previously, which I think is dated from 1988, which is an A2 survey of the existing foundation as it was constructed at the time.
Okay, so you're going to go to 12.84 feet, so you're still within the 12-foot
Correct.
setback there. And you're continuing out for about 8 feet, and that is going to be 26.01 feet from the rear line setback. So you're still all set there.
The rear line setback will not change, correct?
Okay. All right. Questions from the commissioners? Okay, let me just read into the record a letter that we received from Dennis Johnson, Director of Health, dated February 20th, pertaining to this application. The applicant's proposed additions will consist of enlargement of existing bedroom, habitable space in 1 apartment unit, a 6-foot wide front porch, and detached storage shed. The additions will not affect design flow or conflict with setback distances to existing septic systems. Based upon site plan review, it is recommended that the applicant's proposed addition be approved. Okay, any questions from Commission? Any questions from the audience? Anybody wishing to speak in favor of the application? Anybody wishing to speak against? Okay, hearing none, I'll just ask one more time, anybody? Okay, we'll close this public hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, if I can get a motion to approve the revised agenda?
So moved.
All in favor? Okay, first item is, and only item for the public hearing, is the application we just heard. If I can get a motion?
I'll read it. Voted that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve a special permit for Thomas Galoran at 373 Whitfield Street, map 28, lot 20 and 23, to modify a non-conforming use with an addition to the building and a freestanding storage building as shown on the plans prepared by the applicant, dated and received January 8th, 2013, as heard at a public hearing on February 20th, 2013. This application is approved based upon the finding that the modification to the non-conforming use will have no adverse impact on the neighborhood. The special permit is effective on March 1st, 2013, upon filing with the town clerk.
All right. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, I also just want to point out that we do have a request to waive a professionally prepared site plan, so before we start discussing this, maybe I can get that motion on the table as well, and then we'll vote on both of them when we take it up. Okay, any discussion? Okay,
Straightforward.
yeah, relatively minor. I mean, there is an argument, I guess you could make, that we're increasing the nonconformity here, but the variance really was to replace 3 existing structures with 1 4-family structure, so it was really a use variance. The use isn't changing. Pretty minor, and we have not had any input from the public or anyone protesting this, so I'm okay with it as proposed, and in addition, I think since we have the A2 here, and we do have a good drawing as to where things are going to be placed, the 12.84 feet, we just want to point out to the applicant to please make sure you're careful about that, because we've had problems before where things have gotten over the setback and then people get into trouble. So, any other comments? Okay, hearing that, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, you're all set.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, next item on the agenda is Jacobs Beach property located on Seaside Avenue. This is a renovation and upgrade of the town beach. If I can get a motion to receive it.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, maybe we can get a motion on this one?
What are we doing?
What are we doing? You jump?
Agenda in front of you?
Oh, okay, I guess not. I have the town...
The top of your packet.
All right, then, oh, I see. Okay, why don't we do the accessory apartment regulations first? So,
This is a discussion item. It's really, it's in lieu of the zoning committee meeting that we didn't have the other day for lack of attendance, so
okay.
you're acting kind of like the zoning committee right now to consider a discussion item.
All right, Russ, maybe you can tell us what you want to do.
Yes, did you all get painted out the write-up, or should I? Oh, okay.
Proposed changes?
Yeah, all right. I'm also campaigning with CK Architects, and I, through discussions with George and Reggie, want to bring forward an option to have a text amendment to the zoning regulations in section 27319, apartment, accessory apartment. I have, over the years, had many people come forward and found that the existing regulations, which limit the size of an accessory apartment to 1,000 square feet, these are limiting. But recently, I've had 4 people come recently, and they're all looking for multi-general housing options. So basically, either parents having kids move in with them, or adults with families having their parents move back into them. And I've had 4 clients come recently, all with various aspects, some with detached buildings that are existing, and some that are looking to add additions, and some that are looking to renovate existing space within the dwelling, all of which feel really constrained by the 1,000 square feet. And what I'm proposing as an idea is actually that the 1,000 square feet is more actually that the accessory apartment be subordinate to the main dwelling unit, so that there isn't a 2-family type situation in which there's 2 equal-sized buildings. But I felt that the Vulcan area was better controlled in other aspects of the zoning. So in the downtown area where the density is greater, 1,000 square feet might be adequate. But as you go into some of the northern higher districts where you could have a 6,000 square foot home or more, that maybe 1,000 square feet may be a little limiting. And it might be better to link the two so that Vulcan area is controlled in the other areas of the zoning in relation to zone. And the accessory apartment is maybe subordinate through a percentage relationship to the main dwelling. So what I just started with discussion was to propose that 35% of the floor area after improvements would be the up-end limit of what an apartment could be, and allow bedroom, septic, and Vulcan area to be controlled by their other areas of zoning, health department, etc. And then also, there's a strange line that I found somewhat confusing, that right now the regulations read basements accessible from the interior of an accessory apartment shall be counted for the maximum floor area allowed. And that just seems difficult and strange that that would be counted as a subterranean space that's used for mechanicals and such to automatically be counted if it's accessible. And so I've been proposing potentially to change it to, say, finished areas of basements would be counted towards living space of an accessory apartment as opposed to accessory area that was used for mechanicals or for storage for that matter. That should not penalize the 1,000 square feet. And in most instances, for instance, I have one building that's 4,500 square feet that they would like to turn the basement, which is finished right now, into an apartment, and it exceeds 1,000 square feet. It's basically a 1,400 square foot footprint. and the basement is roughly 1,200 square feet, and it just seems difficult to tell that client that they can't use those 200 square feet, that it has to be, and it's even confusing since basements that are accessible inside, the whole basement counts. So basically, the existing reg won't allow that basement to be used, because even if it's unfinished in the basement, it would be counting toward that 1,000 square feet. And I have another client that has a large barn, it's an existing barn, it's 1,400 square foot footprint, 2 stories, and that as well is constrained. They would have to use only a very small portion of that barn as an outbuilding that's been in existence for 10 years. It seems a strange constraint to not allow them to utilize more of the area. So George said that this was an avenue that could be taken to propose a change in text that might modify it. And I also should just sort of speak, if we were to look at multi-generational housing, the New York Times has run, I think, 4 or 5 recent articles about this change, and many developers and such are starting to reflect the change in culture, economics, and otherwise, that families are starting to come back and expand and live together, both for economy, but also for cultural reasons. And I also think, my wife is chair of the Conservation and Development right now. There's been a lot of discussion associated with diversifying opportunities for economic differences and such, and housing types within the town of Guilford. And I think this would lend itself to that, allow more opportunities for people to stay in town, to justify some of the larger homes that might not be wanted, the scale and size might not be wanted, and people might be looking for alternatives to allow for parents and such to live in them. So I'd be happy to answer any questions or concerns associated with
George, do you know the legislative history of this, when this regulation was originally adopted, why it was set at 1,000 feet?
It was actually less than 1,000 originally.
Right.
I've forgotten the number. It might have been 750 even. It was modified to 1,000 a fair number of years ago, I would say more than 10 years ago. The regulation was originally put in place, I think, when we redid the major zoning regulation revision in '78, I believe. And then there have been some other tweaking related, especially to encouraging the use of accessory buildings or detached accessory buildings, encouraging the use of them as accessory apartments.
My guess was because of density concerns that they didn't want.
Well, I mean, there's been a gradual. I mean, it's been a really popular, vehicle for people making improvements to their property. It's been looked at as a model for many other communities. It does provide a lot of opportunity for more affordable dwelling space, whether it's family or not. There's certainly a substantial interest in liberalizing it because of some of the reasons that Russ enumerated. It's the economic and I think that the ability to create septic systems that are functional and not exactly high tech, but better quality septic systems has facilitated the growth of this as well. So that's sort of the history. We haven't changed it in a while.
Discussion. Anybody?
I think there's the debate about the substance of whether this should be done or not, which of course we would have again subsequent to a public hearing if it gets to that point. I think one of the questions that we have right now is, does the commission want to take this as a proposal that they want to draft and propose, or do we want to invite someone to become an applicant other than us? I think that's kind of topic A.
David?
I have 2 questions. One, has anyone besides the gentleman in front of us contacted you and said they have a terrible problem with the existing regulations?
People complain about it. Yes, I've heard, I can't really cite any specific individuals, but people have had difficulties with that constraint, the size constraint. It led to some artificial circumstances, especially where you've had like accessory buildings, like the 1,400 square foot model, where you have 400 square feet of sort of dead space there that's technically not part of the apartment, but probably is really, or maybe even becomes so later. And there is also, perhaps even more importantly, this discussion that's taking place with the Plan of Conservation and Development Group. One of the subsections of that is a group looking at affordable housing and more diversity in our housing supply, and they're certainly talking about the same topic. How do we encourage more of this? So there's interest in it for sure.
Can I understand mechanically, if it's a 6,000 square foot house and you want to put an accessory apartment in it, then if I understand your wording here, that would mean I could I could use 2,100 square feet of the house to be, I did the math.
Yeah.
So then we'd have 6,000 square feet of living space, 2,100 for an accessory apartment, and 3,900 or 4,900.
Yeah. So I mean, and that's up for discussion.
No, I understand that, but
as far as the proportions.
But then if I'm in a accessory building context, I've got a 6,000 square foot house and a 2,000 square foot barn, or maybe a bigger than 2,000 square foot barn, because now I have 8,000 square feet, and is it 35% of 8,000?
Will it be?
Is it, how does that
The
work?
intent was the living space of the barn is calculated by zoning, and the living space of the house
Together
would make
added up.
would make the total living space, the FAR calculation of the.
So that could be a pretty, depending on the size of the barn, depending on the size of the house, it could be a very large accessory apartment.
It definitely could be.
Okay.
But, you know, to put it in context, for instance, I'm not sure if you're familiar, like my mother's outbuilding, which is on Broad Street, set back behind, it's 2,400 square feet as a barn that was existing.
Which one? The
The
blue house?
The blue house in front, and then the barn
Kind of a
behind.
pumpkin barn?
Yep.
Okay.
So that's a 2,400 square foot by zoning calculation
Right.
of space that would be living in there. And that's actually about, the front building is about 7,500, so that's about the proportion. And it's a common size barn. I mean, that's a 30 by 40 barn. And you get a little bit north and you often see 30 by 40, 30 by 50 barns. But it's...
I'm just trying to figure out how the math is going to work
Yes.
with you. It feels like it slides around depending on how big your accessory
there were
building
two
is.
ways we talked about approaching
Okay.
this. One that was associated with the proportion of the existing, and one that looked at the total end result and then gave a percentage that is in proportion to it. And we felt that this was an easier way to approach it, I think, was to look at the aggregate of all of the living area and then look at keeping the apartment in proportional relationship to the total living space of the property, because the total living space of the property, so I guess the question at hand is, the Vulcan area, the size, the scale, how it feels on the site, there still is a special permit approval here, so you have control over that, you have design review still as part of what we're asking. It's more to push the Vulcan area into the Vulcan area to keep it consistent with the neighborhood and allow us to make a social decision, I guess, about the use and how you're proportionally using the two spaces and what relationship to keep the apartment subordinate to the main house is. But, that 6,000 square foot home on a 4-acre property in North Guilford, they can't build a barn and make it happen. The barn has to be there for 10 years. That's
Right.
still in the reg. So it's using that barn in a positive way, or it's planning way ahead and putting a barn there 10 years in advance. But I don't see the abuse there. I think it's, if someone wants to put an addition on and it's a certain scale, again, it's all about the proportions of the addition couldn't be built if the Vulcan area didn't allow it. The septic didn't support it. We're saying that looks appropriate scale-wise because that's determined by zoning. And it's more of a decision of use as to how proportionally you feel subordinate the apartment needs to be to the main house. And I just was trying to break those two into two separate approaches, and I kind of think that's appropriate. I kind of think we should make a decision about the relationship of what is accessory and what's its relationship to the main house. And I think the third is, I just came up with that, but I think the third is not a bad start on discussing that. And then allow the Vulcan area as to whether it will be appropriate in the neighborhood and feel correct is other areas of the zoning are going to oversee that, determine that. And there always is the fail-safe of the historic language that's in here associated with use of outbuildings, and as well as the special permit oversight that's in the permit approval process.
My feeling is, I don't have a problem with this conceptually, but I think the devil's in the detail here, and I'm just worried about unintended results. So my suggestion, and just a suggestion, I think we should get a little discussion here, is that perhaps this is something that ought to go to the planning committee to take a look at this and see what's the best way to frame this and what it is we're trying to accomplish, and ensure that what we get in terms of the regulations is supportive of it. I mean, I know it's a special permit, but you still have to have some criteria in here which is somewhat measurable so that we don't get into a situation where the regulations are too vague and we get sued and it gets construed against us or something. So I'm feeling that, yeah, I can understand what we're trying to do here. I'm supportive of it, but I just worry that if we don't take a little bit of time and look at this, we could get ourselves into a situation which we didn't anticipate. So I would like to send it to planning and have the planning committee along with Russ sit down and take a look at this and see what's the best way to do it. I mean, maybe in like an R8 zone, it makes sense to have something bigger than, maybe 1,000 feet is too big in an R1 zone, I don't know, but maybe there's a sliding scale or something which would keep it in context, or maybe we do need to do something about the basement piece, but I just think it's going to take a little bit of time to look at this and make sure what we have here is something that addresses what it is we're trying to accomplish. Any discussion, anybody here? David, what do you think?
I'm just also wondering where the point of having a maximum square footage came from at all. I mean, there must have been some motivation, and presumably in part it was to keep it subservient to the main house, but presumably there might have been some other motivation that if it's under 1,000 square feet, you're not going to have more than one bedroom,
Well,
two bedroom.
you know,
Is that part of it? You didn't.
I can't say.
Only R1 is the only two-family house
Right.
zoning. Everywhere else, the accessory apartment means the owner has to live either in the apartment or in the house.
Correct.
But if it's over a certain size, does that accessory apartment now become a 2 or 3 bedroom living space, and is it now a de facto two-family arrangement? There must have been some reason that we had a maximum. And we don't know what it was.
I mean, I don't know what the records are like from then, if there's
Yeah,
any history, but
I'm sure that was to try to, to control the extent of it and to,
Even 1,000?
well, if I had to guess, I'd
It's
say,
only been 8 years since they changed that, or...
8.
Or, I think I was working at Eric's whenever we changed that, because I remember it coming into effect, it was a big to-do, or maybe it's right before then, to keep it from having 2 house properties all over the place, and they increased it from 750 to 1,000.
sure, it may have been a compromise. We have had applications come in here where there has been the neighbors protesting about the impact on the residential neighborhood of the additional building. So I suspect what happened here is there was just a limit put on it so that we tried to keep both sides happy. And we have had applications, I can recall not too long ago, where we had one where the neighbors were up in arms about the addition of this and the noise, et cetera, some of which was relevant, some of which wasn't. But in any event, before we touch something like this, I think, it's going to go out for a public hearing. We need to be prepared to answer questions. I'd hate to go out to public hearing and have somebody bring something up and say, hey, did you guys think about this? And we find that we have a situation which we didn't think we were going to get ourselves into, which, hey, you're right. So, again, conceptually, I don't have a problem changing it, especially in the zones up to the north where there are bigger lots. Maybe 1,000 feet isn't enough, and maybe it can be based on total floor area that's there or some other criteria. But I just think it's going to take a little bit of time to look at it in all of the zones to make sure we're not winding up with something that gets us into trouble that we didn't anticipate. I mean,
Makes sense to me.
so what I guess our suggestion would be is we get this on the agenda at the next planning meeting. To the extent you can come in with something that, maybe we start with this and start to pick it apart or something. But my personal concern is that as you get into some of the larger locations, you may get a lot of coverage. That 35% of a 6,000 square foot home sounds like a lot to me. I mean, maybe
Bigger than my house.
yeah, it isn't. maybe I'm not saying it correctly, but I just,
Well,
Yeah,
maybe
it's
the
you know, it's
plan,
the basement, if you think of the way it's laid
Yeah.
out, you know, it's the basement. So I mean, it's, again, you know, it's.
well, and maybe if it's just the basement they're finishing, that's one thing, but if they're putting up another structure, you know, in the back, that's 35% of 6,000 square feet, maybe.
But they're limited to
We
an
can't-
attached structure, it has to be 10 years old, and it has to.
Oh, I know.
And it can't be greater
Right.
than 750
Right.
square.
But it could presumably be part of the existing.
Right.
Could be an addition.
Put
Yeah.
an addition on
As an
existing
attached
house,
addition.
should that be
Yeah.
a 8,000 square foot house?
It could, but that person could have an 8,000 square foot house if it wasn't an accessory apartment.
But we'd have two different living units there with two different sets of people going to work at the same time, two different
No,
sets
that's
of children
true.
going
It
to
does
school.
give, you're right.
And
It could be.
Presumably, we have single-family zoning and
Right.
other zoning. but
So-
different expectations.
I would actually, I mean, in the downtown, I would caution against, I mean, all the projects I'm looking at right now are out of town. But the center of town is so limited by land size that most of the homes are not conforming and limited to the amount of square footage that can be added. So really, again, the zoning is sort of controlling the density of what can be done. But an existing house that's downtown, you know, again, it comes back to the proportion of what's there and how it can be operated.
and it if-
I'd be happy to go to the planning.
Yeah, and work this out. I mean, I'm not trying to sidetrack this. I think it's a good thing to do.
one of the
And
things
there's
we can
apparently
do
a
is
demand for
perhaps
it,
do
so.
some illustrations of what this might look like in some hypothetical circumstances or even some real ones.
Sure.
And then I think once it's been vetted there, we can get a reg drawn up that we would all agree with, and then we can take it out to the public.
Okay.
So I guess what I
Your
would...
sense is that if the planning committee can agree on something, then vet all the issues, then it would be a commission proposal to amend the zoning regulations.
Yes. That's my feeling on this. Once we're comfortable
Right.
with what we have here, then I think we
I
can
mean,
go
it is,
out.
of course, the purpose of the public hearing to, we don't necessarily have to have every question answered prior to the public hearing. In fact, that's the purpose of the
No, no,
public
no,
hearing, is to
I know.
identify things we haven't thought of.
Absolutely, and we may work on it a little bit more after the public
Right,
hearing and send it
right.
out again, but I'm
Yeah.
saying if we can at least get, I mean, you know, conceptually what it is we're trying to do, why we think this will work, some examples,
Right.
and where we've done the best we can to ensure there's no unintended consequences, then I think we're ready to go out. You're right, it's not going to be perfect at that point,
Right.
but it'll be more than it is now, I think.
Provides the sheen of having a clue that we know what we're doing.
Well, that's right. We've taken the time to look it over carefully, because this,
Right.
I suspect you're going to have people for and against an expansion, so I just want to make sure that it's been vetted, it's been looked at, time's been put into it, and we can answer
Exactly.
most, if not all, the questions that come up. All right, thank you very much. Okay, now we'll move forward with the Town of Guilford Jacobs Beach property located at Seaside Avenue. This is a mandatory referral for the renovation and upgrade of the town beach. I can get a motion to receive.
I'd like to make a motion that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission reports favorably on a mandatory referral from the Board of Selectmen regarding improvements to the Jacob Beach in accordance with A-24 of the CGS.
We have to receive it first, right?
Yeah, well, you should
We don't
receive it
usually do
first,
that,
but
it's okay.
all in favor of
This
receipt?
is, let me explain, this is the town council or bond council or somebody, we've already approved the site plan application for this, for the Jacobs Beach improvements, the CAM application.
Oh, this is already,
Yeah, this is the, because it's going to be a
They're going to bond it?
bond
Yeah,
issue,
so
we also have to do
sure
a mandatory
bond
referral.
Council wants to make sure that this has been approved by the town before they give them the
Right.
money, because they don't want to find out later that they
Right.
have an issue and
So we've already
It's not
approved
gonna-
the site plan application,
Yeah.
and this, I would say that, I'll say the same thing about the next one as well. The bulkhead replacement, we've already approved the coastal site plan for the work, but because they're going to bond this, we also need to do a mandatory referral on both of these applications.
Okay, the first one, I guess we've received both of them. The first
Yeah.
one, we do have a motion on the table. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing that, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Aye. Okay, can I get a motion on the next one, which is the replacement of the town bulkhead?
Voted that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission reports favorably on a mandatory referral from the Board of Selectmen regarding replacement of the bulkhead at the town dock in accordance with Section 8-24 of the Connecticut General Statutes.
Okay, here a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Aye. Okay. All right, moving right along to the first one. I think before we receive this one, set a public hearing, I think we need to have a discussion of development depth. If there's an issue,
Right. Kevin can walk us through this,
right,
what the question is, what we meant in the regulations, and how that might affect this particular application.
because it's my understanding that depending on how this gets interpreted, they may go forward with this application, or they may withdraw it and submit a new one.
Or apply for, they may need to go for a variance.
Okay.
Or go for a variance.
All right,
Depends on
so
what you-
why don't we,
what you
which they'll
decide.
have to do before they come here anyway,
Right.
so
Right.
maybe you
I
can,
have this on the board, so it's going to lay on the table in front of you guys.
okay.
CAM application off of Woods Island Road. The issue coming to play here, and doesn't have
Okay.
You got it?
Yeah, I got it.
The thing that's in play here is the development depth in section H, which are setbacks from the coastal resources. And the thing here is that the measurement for the development depth is the distance from the critical resource and an existing structure or impervious surface. Or if the lot is unimproved, it's the building lot, it's the front building lot line.
Okay, is this unimproved, or is it?
This is unimproved lot.
Okay.
It was a section of, this probably got subdivided a number of years ago to create this lot here, so there's no structures or anything on this
So it's,
subdivided portion.
according to
here.
this, it should be from the front building line of the lot.
Right, so if you're measuring
Okay.
from the critical resources here, which are aimed sort of this way,
Mm-hmm.
and a little bit that way, he has a depth of, the front building line, it's an interior lot, so I'm not sure if it even comes to, if there is even a front building line with an interior lot.
Boy.
Your front lot line, and here's the house here, you have a driveway length or a length here of 411 feet. So you're looking at a setback of 100 feet.
Yeah, boy.
My look at it is, I was talking with George and Reggie about it, is should you actually be measuring this distance
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's-
proportionally?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the context, or the concept was that
Square
that
lot
you-
to the
that you'd
road.
have your road here, your house, potential house here, and then the water would be in your backyard.
Right.
So let's figure out how much depth you have.
Yeah.
This is an anomaly.
I mean, I can't believe that it's, this is the setback here, for the depth starts there, right? I mean, that would,
That's why George and I looked at each other and going,
Well, what are they proposing, and how does it fit into the context of our existing regulations then?
They're proposing a new house construction, stormwater galley, septic system, driveway in. The coastal hazard, or their critical coastal resource, is the edge of a salt marsh.
It's wetlands, not rocky or anything like that?
No rocky coast here.
Okay, so
pretty
it's-
much up from-
It's tidal wetland.
Tidal wetlands.
Okay.
The property setback here, since it's an interior lot, is 50 feet. So right now, the house is butted right against that direction there. They're showing 25 feet to the closest proposed structure here.
I mean, if it wasn't for this, would they need any variances?
If it wasn't for that,
I mean, assuming if.
I don't know, George, you're...
I don't think, no, it meets all the normal setback
Right.
requirements. The question is, what is the setback requirement from the tidal wetlands? Is it 100 feet, is it 35, 50, 25? I guess Eric is arguing that it should be 25.
At least, at a minimum, it's 25.
That's what it was before, yeah.
It was before, and Eric didn't
Before it was,
realize that.
right, at a minimum, it was 25.
Right.
development depth here. I kind of
This-
forgot about this.
You could argue that this lot was created with the idea that maybe it's 25 too.
Because it was
But
subdivided pre-change of the camera regulations.
the new
Okay.
It's
regulations.
an argument he probably can make to the
ZBA.
ZBA.
Yeah, well, where would it have to be less than 50 feet from if it's going to be the 20, is it?
He would have to be, this back line here, I mean, if this was to say this is a front building line,
Mhm.
this building line would have to be 0 to 50. 0 to 50 here for him to be 25 feet.
All right. I got it.
Setback. The next thing would be this building line to here, for 35 feet, would have to be anywhere between 50 and
Mhm.
100 feet.
What's the
Okay.
current setback, 50 and a half, 50?
He's 25.3 at 50.5, right?
In a 30-foot house and a 12-foot deck
And then from the edge of the deck to the wetland
is 20.
is 25
Five,
feet?
Yeah,
yes.
he's
Okay.
over the 25.
So he's got
Okay.
25 and 12, so he's up at 30, 37, 67, and then 50 there, 100.
Well, I mean, he would meet it, right. Right, if,
It strikes me that that's in keeping with the spirit and intent of this graduated setback system.
Right.
Again, like I said, it contemplates road, house, water in your backyard.
Right.
So,
well, I mean, my interpretation is that he should not need to get that
So
variance.
the
that
required
he's-
setback for coastal resources is 25 feet.
Right, and that's, his development depth is less than the 50, so he's okay.
You're saying the development depth is, you're saying back to this line here?
Mhm.
So his development depth is 22 feet plus 12 feet plus 30 feet plus 50. And then whatever that number is, you go to this table here,
Right.
and that's your setback.
And he meets it, right? I mean, if you add him, have you done that? I mean, if you add him up,
He's greater, I think he's over 100 feet.
so then his 35 feet is the setback.
He might be even pushing 50-foot setback, yeah.
Well, but if that's the case, how could he get anything on here?
He can't, he'd have to get a variance.
Yeah.
He has a good,
I mean,
he has a hardship.
That's why I'm
Yeah,
asking.
Yeah,
I wasn't saying that he doesn't need to get a variance, but it strikes me that he, because of the strict reading of our regulations, says the front lot line, which is 200 feet away or something like that.
Right.
Though I'm not, you can't actually build a house on the Flagstaff part of your flagpole lot,
Well, it
usually.
depends on how wide it is and how big a house you want. You could
Yeah.
theoretically build a tiny
Bowling
one.
alley?
he's what, 75 feet?
20.
I guess he could come like this.
If you could meet the setback, the side yards, or the other setbacks. So what is your interpretation of what the development depth is here? And that if I just heard you correctly, it adds up to more than would meet the 25-foot setback. So he has to apply for variance either for the 35 feet or the 50 feet, whatever the arithmetic is.
Well, why don't,
I was confused about that. Why were we measuring off of this line? I thought we should be,
Right, the development depth is this point to this point here.
yep.
So
Okay.
that's 25 feet plus 12 feet plus, this is 30 feet, and that distance here is 50 feet.
So, yes, well, I'm sorry, the depth of the lot in this context is 100 feet, right? But we measure, since right now this is an unimproved lot, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so we need to then measure off of the front
Front building
building
line.
line of the lot, which, are we treating it as if it's the sideline
Well,
here?
that's what my question was kind of measuring here is, do you get the benefit of the doubt on this plan since it's
Right, if you
cut back
measure it
in
off of that
here.
side lot line,
side lot line, your distance, whatever this distance here, dictates what column you look on here, determine what your setback is from the coastal resource.
okay,
so it's 50.5 plus 30, so there's 80, plus 12, now you're talking 92,
Two.
plus about another 25.
Correct.
So you're between the 100 and 200, so you're saying
50 feet.
So he would need to get a variance from 50 feet down to whatever, is it, it's like, there's no Rocky Shorefront, so we're 50 feet from
Tidal wetland.
tidal wetlands. So he would need to get one, I guess he's okay here, possibly another one here. So he'd need to get at least two.
He would need a
variances.
variance from the critical resource.
Yeah.
So we just need to make it clear to him what the amount of the variance is that he's required to get. It sounds like it's 25 feet.
Well,
If he wants to build this plan, the
And what-
requirement is 50 feet, and he's got 25, so he needs a variance of
25 feet, he needs
from
at
the
least a
set- from the
25-foot
critical
variance.
coastal resource setback requirement.
That's right, if you,
So this needs to go to ZBA before we hear it? We won't hear it then on the 20th?
Yeah, I think, we can receive it and set a public hearing for some distant date, or we can just send it back to him and say, go for the variance.
What are the setback requirements, just strictly in terms of interior lot, side lot lines and things like that?
50.
It has to be
All the way around.
all the way around,
For
or,
an interior lot, yes.
or not meaning next to an adjoining property line, because
Right.
it's
And-
closer
and the
than
street
50.
line, too.
Okay,
From any property line, it would be 50 feet is the property line setback.
okay. So, and the anomaly that shows up here is because the front lot line presumably is over here, he's got
You
300 feet of development.
yeah, I mean,
depth
he would need to
potentially.
be 100 feet.
He has the potential,
Yeah.
but if we
Do it this way.
because it's a uniquely
Interior lot.
interior lot, if we treat that as if it were the front lot line, I'm sorry, the front building line, that would be 50 feet.
Yeah, I mean, if, again, this is going to have to be done more accurately than I'm doing it, but it looks like he's over 100 feet if we treat it this way. So that means he's going to need a 50-foot setback from any of the tidal wetlands. So if he's okay here, but over here he isn't, so he's going to need the variance to go from 50 down to 25.3, looks like the closest point here, and I don't know how
All right, so
far.
the distance between here and there is how much?
This is 30 feet, so I'm assuming that this
30,
is 30.
42,
And
then what
that's
is that?
12, that's
60, 67, is that 25 there, 67? So he's presumably got 67 feet of, if we treat that as if it were the front building line, he's got 67 feet of depth between him and the critical coastal
Oh,
resource.
so that means he's subject to the 35.
The 35 foot.
If you treat it that
If we're
way.
treating it like that.
Well, that's what we have to decide. How should we
Hold on,
treat
what
it?
how did you do your,
All right. If we treat this line here as if it were the front building line.
this one here, yep?
So if I understand the way these regulations read,
Yep.
to measure the development depth, you go to the front building line, which for these purposes, we're going to count as here, because that's the 50-foot setback from the
You don't count that
sideline.
50 feet towards it.
I'm sorry?
You don't add on another
You don't-
50.
No? I'm
No,
not-
this distance from here to here is your development depth.
It says from the front
No,
building
it's
line.
from
of the
that
lot.
50-foot line.
The CCR to the front building.
Oh, if-
Isn't the development depth then the distance between the front building line?
It's just this piece, right here. It's not the whole,
We're going backwards on it.
It's from the front building line to the tidal wetland
The
line.
front building line
It's a
presumably is the
distance
setback
between-
that was
It's
Okay.
50 feet,
Right,
right?
the setback that was required from the street line, or in this
Right.
particular instance, the sideline, because
That's-
we're in an interior. So
Right.
I've got it, my front lot line is 50 feet away from here, so that's that line right there.
Yeah.
What's the distance between this line and the critical coastal resource?
Right.
Okay.
Distance between the critical coastal resource and the front building line.
Your 30, your
That's
12,
like
and your 25.
67 feet, right?
It's under
Puts him at 35.
Yeah, so he's
Six-
he's got a 67-foot development depth, he has to be 35 feet.
So
That, in
he's-
theory, is what the variance ought to be.
a 10-foot variance is
And it makes
basically what
sense
he
to
needs.
say that that's in keeping with the spirit of
Right.
CAM, because this is an anomalous lot.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
He
It's
can
not
either
quite a-
redesign it or apply for a variance.
I didn't know there was a map.
But I think in terms of the application
I
tonight,
am
Eric
done.
is, Eric has suggested that he would, we don't have to receive the application. He's going to withdraw it, either redesign it or apply for a variance, or both,
Okay. so
and then
we're not-
and then resubmit it.
This is Eric
Yeah, I think
Anderson?
we should also,
And we'll explain to him now what the rationale was. And,
Tell him to call.
Oh,
okay, I think that's clear.
okay, so we're not going to receive it.
No, he's withdrawn it.
Leave it up to the applicant to make the decision.
Makes that sidewalk. There's some heavy thinking on your feet.
And I am.
25.
I had a long day. I had a late night.
42, 25, yeah, he should still be within it, so he should be between 50 and 100. All right, so
Where are these?
that's the answer. All right, so we've interpreted that one, we're not going to receive the application then, until we get the variance. Okay, moving along, we have next application, Bennett Hall, property located at No Man's Island. This is a coastal area management site plan review for the construction of a walkway, pier, and ramp, and a floating dock to access the property is approved by DEEP. Receive and set a public hearing date of March 6th. Motion?
So moved.
All in favor?
Where is No Man's Island? Where are either?
Old Quarry Road,
It's
it's
off
off
of
of
Old
Old Quarry.
Huh.
We won't be sidewalking that, I don't imagine.
Yeah.
Do we look?
The next one is for same applicant, Bennett Hall, except this is from, I guess, Baines Island, same
Adjacent island.
particulars. Okay. Receive and set a public hearing date of March 6th. Get a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have a zoning code amendment that's being proposed. This is a proposed change to section 273-58L6. Existing non-conforming billboard signs may be replaced by LED signs, subject to special permit approval. In accordance with Article 10, if one, the area of said billboard is reduced by a minimum of 50%. Number two, the LED sign content change occurs no more frequently than every 8 seconds. And number three, the sign is in compliance with all rules and regulations of the State of Connecticut Department of Transportation in effect at the time of the adoption of this regulation, which I have a problem with that wording, but we'll take that up at the public hearing. Proposed definition of the billboard, any object, device, display, or structure which is used for attracting attention to any use, product, service, or activity not conducted, sold, or offered on the premises where such advertising sign or billboard is located. Receive and set a public hearing date of March 6th. Get a motion?
So moved.
Or a second? Anybody going to second it?
I think we have to receive it.
Someone's got to second it.
Well, okay, can I second it?
Sure.
I'll second it. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, it's received. We'll go out and have a public hearing on March 6th.
Man, that's not a good, just for the fun of it, that is supplementing, proposed to supplement section L6, not, it would just be stuck on the bottom of it.
Add on,
Okay.
adding to it, yeah. That's not our proposal, that's
Yeah.
CBS sign.
I know.
Okay, we have a special permit from Erica Asrigian and Barbara Kerwin, property located at 90 Broad Street and 20 Church Street. This is a special permit to allow site plan revision for a non-conforming use in a residential zone to permit outdoor display of merchandise. Receive and set a public hearing date of March 6th.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? And we have a zoning map amendment that's being proposed by Victor and Heather Antara, property located on Route 1, map 78, lot 16A1. It's presently a zone R8. Proposed zoning map amendment to change the parcel from an R8 zone to a TS2 zone. Receive and set a public hearing for March 20th.
So moved.
Here, a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, good.
Which property is that, just for the fun?
It's next to his property that he has now. I think it's what, to the east of it, George? Or is it?
Yeah, this is the, where the Chateau, the
Yeah.
French Chateau commercial building, you know what I mean?
How could I miss it?
In the back of it and sort of wrapping around to the east.
All right, of course,
Of the correspondence, which is, Manu seminar, which is on a Saturday, a really good seminar. If anybody wants to go, we need to get that going.
what date is it?
It's It's on the,
You all have the brochure, I think.
I gave you a copy of it.
No, I know.
I mean, I don't see a date, I see times, but maybe I missed it.
It's on March 16th, Saturday, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 at Wesleyan. And last time we had, Peter was going to go and something happened, he didn't make it, no one showed up. We had, and I tried to book too, and the year before last I tried to book, they were sold out. So we're going to go, we need to get somebody.
All right. I cannot make it the 16th myself, but if anyone else can you please get word to,
Planning on somebody.
Yeah, I guess if you don't go to any of these, this is the one to go to.
Chansky's talking, a lot of really good folks on this.
What is she talking
She
about?
talks about churches.
Oh, I bet she
religious.
does. Where is she?
Chuck's going to be there too,
Chuck
speaking.
speaks, yep.
Dwight, Miriam?
Town council from Madison, Mike Siska, guy, he's a really good speaker.
All right, well, if anyone...
Where is the date? I don't see the date on it.
It's not there, you have, March
You
16th.
gotta add it in yourself. March 16th.
Which is what day of the week?
Saturday. So if anyone, when do you need to know by?
As soon as possible.
All right, in the next few days, if...
I'd like to have it by Friday. I'm gonna send it out
Okay.
to the people who are not here and make
All
sure.
right, if you don't get it by Friday, then they're out of luck.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Planning Committee, next meeting is March 19th, 5:15 PM in the Selectmen's Meeting Room. Looks like we'll probably have the accessory apartments on that agenda. Zoning Committee, March 11th, 5 PM, Town Hall South. We have a bill from Shore Publishing for $246.24. Can I get a motion to pay the bills?
Move we pay the bill.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, approval of the minutes, the January 16th minutes, those should have been distributed. Any comments, changes, updates, modifications, et cetera? Okay. Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of accepting the minutes? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Anybody opposed or abstaining? Okay, having no more business, I will call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned. I am not going to be here the next meeting.